Today is Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, and welcome to episode 110 of Rural Reliance with Canny Couple. I'm Julia.
And I'm Aaron.
We're a small homestead family in rural Southwest Virginia that work every single day to be more self-reliant, less dependent on outside sources, merging homesteading and frugality. Today we want to talk about something that is still very new to us.
It is. It's something that happened at the beginning of this year, and we're still learning, growing, adjusting to this.
Making mistakes.
Yep.
And that is living on one income, a single income family. So, if you're new to our channel, we decided last year we had to make a change.
Yes.
So, we were having difficulties balancing life, the homestead, work, everything that needed to be done. Because Aaron and I have, before, this year, we were a dual income family.
Yeah.
We were full-time work,
Since 2016.
In 2016, since we became a family.
Yeah.
We had always worked. And we were trying to manage all of this stuff. And then having a little one on top of that expanded our family. And it just seemed to make everything just a little bit more complicated.
And getting out of a house remodel and
everything.
And trying to get everything back in order.
It's a lot. And we're still working through a lot of that.
We are.
And some of it has to wait till winter time because there's just not time now.
Because of homestead
because
stuff.
Because of the homesteading stuff. Right. I'm having to shift my priorities around. And
food preservation always number one.
Food preservation is always number one. And last year we realized we had to make a change. I didn't have the bandwidth to keep going this route. Aaron didn't have the bandwidth to keep going this route. And the change, we knew we couldn't make a change till we became debt free. This was a big thing for us.
Well, we knew we could.
We could have a lot of families do, and it makes sense for them. But for us, for my peace of mind,
we had to get debt free to go to one single income.
We did. We didn't know if that was exactly what we were going to do, if we were going to do something different, but we knew we needed to have that freedom to make that change.
Yeah.
That was the main thing. We knew once we became debt free, we would have freedom to make adjustments and changes. Somebody could have went part-time. Somebody could have quit their job and stayed home, take care of the homestead, the family.
And all of those are things we discussed, weighed the pros and cons of what would be the best for us and our family.
Absolutely. And we're constantly discussing that to make sure we're on the same place, we're in a good place, and things are moving in the right direction, the direction we want them to. And they are, just not as fast as we wanted.
Very true.
That's probably the more frustrating part. And I think with all the work we have coming, it's still not going to move any faster next year. We have a lot of work to do to get the maintenance down, that it's not going to move as fast as you want it to. It's not going to move
as fast as I want it to.
As fast as I want it to. He wants it to move much faster. And
she's like, fast, and I'm like, 10 times that.
And that's whenever he busts his head open.
Yeah,
we have an emergency room visit. So we knew being debt-free was important. We probably could have made this change earlier if we'd had like a side business out or a side business idea that we thought we could come into it without being debt-free.
But we didn't have enough time.
There was just no way. And I brought a lot of my stress home, and I shouldn't have, but it was just there, and we were working 45 hours or more a week, and that was each of us, plus doing all the home and everything. So it can get difficult. It could be very difficult. So we made the choice for us to go down to one income.
We did.
It was hard. It was hard.
We weighed the pros and cons,
made sure we could actually do it.
Well, even from the standpoint of if you were the right choice, even, But we went through all the pros and cons, and we knew who the baby likes better, so.
So, let's talk about fears. that we had, and we still have sometimes going into
Mm-hmm.
this, and how we kind of mitigate those fears. Especially if you're looking at this and you're like, man, I'd love to, take care of my family and be able to manage it, because I know it's a struggle. It's hard, especially today with everything coming through. So one of the really big things we had to worry about was loss of income. If we lost income,
Yes.
that's always a fear.
Because
No
with
one's
one income, the other one couldn't take over if that one's gone, for
right.
example.
Absolutely. And I feel like for a female, or this is my opinion, it's harder to jump back into the market when you've been a stay-at-home mom. In my industry, it would have been harder for me to jump back in, to be like, okay, I can go back to work and find a job that would have worked for our family, and I would have had the same pay grade. It would have been very hard for me to find a job like that. Now, Aaron, he's more marketable. His skills are more marketable than mine. They are. They are. He doesn't think so. They are. Now, how do we mitigate that? We have a good um, emergency fund. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word.
And so this is where we talk about each month when we budget from an emergency fund perspective about putting, it's $50 now, right? Okay, because I was thinking it used to be $75 before, so now it's $50 that we put back every month into emergency fund as, the emergency situation scenario.
No, we don't tap into this very often. We've not tapped into the emergency fund in a really long time.
Really
And that money builds a
time.
lot faster than you think. And for us, we look at it at a bare bones budget perspective. And this is where it gets very important. You need to know how much you need to have to cover your basic expenses for a set period of time.
Right.
That number is what you feel good about. The number is only what you feel good about. I know Dave Ramsey, there's just 3 to 6 months worth of income.
Right.
We tend to go a little deeper than that. We like a year at least.
Right.
A year feels good to us. But remember, this is bare bones. This is, you're not going to go out to eat. You are not eating luxurious food. You're not getting the filet mignon. You're not getting any of the fun stuff you would normally get.
A lot of rice and beans.
A lot of rice and beans. Or cheaper foods.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of homemade stuff. This is, you're going to cut out the unnecessary bills, the streaming services you might have happening.
This would be your if you've got a rent, mortgage, utilities,
all that needs to be counted in.
Water, electricity, your basics. Anything beyond that is, you don't need a miscellaneous fund as much during that time because you're not going to be doing anything fun. You don't need those streaming services. Those type of things where this gets you down to what if you had to do this till you get back on your feet.
Absolutely. And ours is, I got that number down, and we reevaluate it every year to make sure this is still correct and good, and we know what our monthly expenses are. Now, you have to be careful with this. You have to make sure you have a hedge, because our other fear was the cost of living and inflation. Yes, we do live in a lower price area. But our groceries are more expensive than other areas. We're rural.
Well, besides California.
But you could look at some places, groceries, they can get shredded cheese, I see, for 99 cents. I can't get shredded cheese for 99 cents. I can't get shredded cheese for under $2 most of the time.
Or when I see the Texas ones talk about how cheap they can get
brisket
for and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, that would be so nice.
We can't get anything like it. We don't have anything in our area like that. And that's okay. That's because we chose this area. Mm-hmm. If we want a brisket, we have to put it in the budget and have to adjust and make room in the budget for that. Mm-hmm. But, there are we've talked about the advantages and disadvantages of living in a rural area. And there are some costs with that. There are.
And that's some of the things we take into consideration. Like, for us in our bare bones budget, we still have some gas in that bare bones budget because
we have to drive.
We got to drive to get to the grocery store. It ain't like
or anywhere.
It ain't like I can walk to the grocery store. I mean, I guess I could. It's not safe on this road to do it, but it would be 16-mile trip.
Yeah, it was. It'd
Eight,
be
eight
more than that.
miles one way, 8 miles the other.
I thought that was down to the hill.
Oh, that gets me.
That's down to the hill. That's not getting you to the grocery.
Get me to Food Line. It's probably another 2 miles.
Probably another
So it'd be 20 miles.
20 miles. And coming back up, going down probably won't be hard.
Wouldn't be as hard as the other
Coming
ways
up with groceries, how you gonna get them up here? You gonna have to take the hand truck.
I guess so. Pull my little wagon behind me.
So we do look at those things, and our hedge against inflation is to make sure we're constantly looking at those numbers. And because we have really high electricity, it's so high, and it keeps going up. But I know I'm seeing this everywhere. I know the median just talked about how their water bill is going up like a massive amount for them.
Massive.
We don't have a water bill because we're on well water.
Right. So that's our electricity pumps our water for us. So that's why ours might be a little bit more, than somebody who lives in a city.
And so what we try to do is we're trying to mitigate our electrical costs because it might be a little bit higher than what we want it to be to get that cost lower. And they do keep raising the prices on us. Insurance, same thing. I like to have that sinking fund padded. Aaron and I kind of disagree about the amount of padding in these sinking funds. I tend to be on the more is better. He tends to be on a couple $100 extra is enough when it's really not.
Right, but so the padding gets us ahead when it does raise, and that's a good example of one to reevaluate. It's not one we've reevaluated probably in a year and a half.
Well, that was
because when we had a home equity loan to get some of the housework done, that the bank was paying a couple of these, so didn't have the exact amounts when increases happened. So this year we're gonna make sure to track that very good to make sure we don't need to adjust for next year.
But we still kept putting money into that account. We did change the dollar amount. So even though we weren't paying those bills, they were being paid. We were setting that money aside just in case.
Yep.
Just in case, and also to build the hedge, to build that fund up for whenever we did have it paid off. Now, we weren't expecting to have it paid off in 5 months, but we pushed really hard and we were able to make that happen. So, bare bones, have those hedges. And now we're going to talk about the things that really work for us to have us on one income. And these things are what work for us. And I would say the first thing is a budget. But a budget's only as good as the information you're putting into it and your meetings.
It's true. I know some people are able to do one income with not budgeting. It is harder to predict expenses and stuff around that, then I do suggest you do budget if just because we're very passionate about that.
Well, it is becoming a hated word. People hate budgeting, and they find it to be cumbersome. Another thing they have to do, another thing to take time away from their free time. They're having to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. They don't want to have to budget, and we get that. But putting that work into your budget, it's going to give you a lot more freedom, and you're not going to see it up front. But as you start to make progress, especially if you're paying off debt, whatever your big goals are, and you start to see progress,
right,
and you start to see your spending habits, you can start making changes. You might not even realize you're paying subscriptions out there that you need to be getting rid of.
That's true.
And in all reality, some of the apps might feel cumbersome to you, might feel clunky to you. Search around. There's a lot of financial people out there who have put together, this is not an endorsement, spreadsheets, but even reviews of the apps, what works, what doesn't work,
sure,
for budgeting. The Money Guy did one. They did that comparison.
They went through, reviewed each of them.
4 of the big ones. It's a good option. Just find one that works for you. You don't have to do a paid version if you don't want to, but it might be something you need to look at. depending on how you need to budget. But I would say the biggest thing for us, because we've always budgeted,
We have.
we've always budgeted. We've changed, we've adjusted, we've shifted things in our budget to make it work better for us. But the biggest thing for us is these weekly budget meetings.
It is, so we can talk about, see if we're on pace, seeing what we're, how much we spent for the month. Make sure, like last week, we're like, okay, this is how much we've got left in grocery for the month. Those type of things to make sure we do stay on track.
And it helps. It
It
helps.
does.
Because this was one of the things I think Aaron was more worried about, because he always entered the information in the budget. And I knew we were okay because I was bringing in income too. And he's like, you're going to have to be more involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to know more about what, these numbers. It can't just be a once a month thing. So we need to figure out what we need to do. So we have it set every Sunday. We have a budget meeting.
Yep.
And a lot of times what we do is Aaron will go get all the prep work done on Saturday right now.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm cooking. Since I'm cooking for the week, he's getting us our money ready for the week.
Yeah.
And it works really well for us. And then on Sunday morning, after we have fresh eyes, we come in and we look at it and we see where we stand. And it works. It
Right.
really does. It works so well for us. I have to say this has been one of the biggest changes we've made as a single income family, and it's probably been one of the best changes we've made.
Agree.
We know where we stand every single week with our finances.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people would feel like that's too much. But when you're a single income, you're wanting to watch every penny, especially if you're trying to pay off debt. You're trying to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're trying to be a single income family who is, or trying to move towards that. Looking at that once a week does help. You need to know every dime both of you are spending.
Right.
Because you both need to know. It can't be one person is in control of the money and the other's not, because you both have to spend the money.
Right. You both have to be involved.
Yeah, because it's not just Aaron's income. It's our income.
Right. Exactly.
And that's how we look at it. This is helping both of us. Our buying list. I say this has helped so much.
This one here is one where we're able to get over time and prioritize what we need. So we did a
Any
buying.
ideas?
Right. So we've got a Notion site that we use for this, and we're able to see it on multiple devices, and it's free to set up if that's something. It takes work. It's not a intuitive type one, but it's definitely something we put on there. Okay, here's the site we found that's probably the cheapest. Here's the price we think that's the cheapest, and then we can look at it from month by month perspective and see, okay, hey, we need this by November, so we need to make sure we buy before then, for example.
So here's a great example. I need a new crock pot, and I want either stainless steel or I want a cast iron crock pot. I haven't decided between the two yet. I kind of want to lean towards the stainless steel because I know it's going to be easier to keep clean. It'd be so much less work on keeping it clean. So I'm really tempted to go that route. But they're expensive compared to a traditional crock pot. And also a thermal cooker. And I would like these before winter set in. I don't use them in the summer. It's not something I need right now because of the amount of heat those things push off. And I would much prefer to go to my Instant Pot. My Instant Pot's my go-to in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
So... But by winter time, I need to have them. So I have about 2 months to get these things.
Yep.
If we have extra money in the budget, we'll look at that. If we have an extra $200, like, okay, hey, let's get this. But if we have enough room in the budget, I'll also come there and be like, hey, I need $100 to get some household stuff to keep us ahead.
Yeah.
And this is where I get our deodorants, our shampoos, all of that stuff, toilet paper, anything like that. I always make sure we're ahead. And this is one of the things I do. And I'll take a little bit of money from our excess.
Right. And that's something, we're trying to get natural or make ourselves. We did try the natural deodorant, and your skin did not like it.
I couldn't.
So, stuff like that. We're experimenting with, and it's been a little bit more. because natural stuff costs more. So we've had to plan around that a little bit more.
We have, but we're also I always try to make sure we're ahead. Like
Yeah.
this month, any extra we have, I know I have to get some deodorant because we're close to where I want to be. I know, like I keep an eye on all of our toiletries, all of our
Mm-hmm.
goods. This is something that I feel like is one of my big jobs is make sure we don't really run out of stuff or to manage it. Now, some things I do get a little bit behind on. He has a look on his face.
You knew what I was gonna say.
I know what you're going to say, but I'm also managing it. I know when we're going to be behind, and I count and I keep up with it before we run out. It's just I try to push it as far as I can, and I know I'm not supposed to. And so there are things that I do. But for the most part, especially our shampoos, our conditioners, our toothpaste, our deodorant, I do try to stay ahead on that because I don't want us to have to go and just get whatever, the local drugstore has or something.
So a good example the other day is diapers.
I had enough. I had
Well,
enough.
well, you had enough of the regular type that we use during the
I
day.
had enough of the other. It was
Well, we have
not.
cloth diapers too.
We have cloth
But
diapers too.
but we were for the nighttime one. What for me to feel comfortable, we were on the last night with the shipment coming in the next day. I told her, I said, half a pack. You order then.
We were fine. The next thing we do is planning. So we talked about that a little bit, but we take this even further. So my groceries, how I plan out buying my groceries, how we look at our energy usage, all
Mm-hmm.
of this we look at, we kind of plan and guess. Like Aaron tries to estimate what our actual electric bill is going to be.
Yes. So I've done a lot of this with Home Assistant. I've got a Home Assistant little device set up for that, linked to the power company's thing, which sort of pulls in daily. I can look how much we've used the day, usually 2 days later, so we can sort of see from an overall perspective and plan, to say, oh gosh, we are going to be way over our expected amount. We need to do something, for the next couple of weeks or something.
Or, we know, like, I can't. So we knew we were going to be hired that day.
We were. So electric usage was about double that day when we had the beast out, as we call the other day.
But I was not just canning. I was cooking. As
Yeah.
canning, I was doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we were running the dishwasher on
Mm-hmm.
the sterilized setting, so it's going to pull more energy.
Right.
We had all of these things that we were doing. We knew we were going to be over, but we had planned for it.
Mm-hmm.
We had planned for it. So planning has really helped. Even planning out birthday shopping. This has been important. Like, I just started birthday shopping for October because I have 2 October people to buy for. If I know this. I know this. Their birthday doesn't change. It doesn't switch months.
Well, right. And to keep the budget more consistent, spread it out over a few months instead of doing it all the month of.
Or right before.
Or right
So
before. Right.
I took the amount I had for both of them, split it down the middle, and bought one month and the rest of the next.
Yeah.
It worked out really well. It really does. So, how are we doing? So, overall, what would you say? How are we doing?
Really good. A lot better than I definitely projected us to be.
My grocery budget.
I didn't think she could do 300. I really didn't.
He did it. No faith.
I had no faith. We'll be honest. Like 300's really low in my mind for the way things are today. And the things that I didn't factor in was going more natural as well. I haven't ate as many snacks. If I need snacks, she'll fix me a snack, type of thing. That has definitely cut back a lot in the budget.
He loves my chili lime cracker bread.
Oh, I do. I've almost went through 3-quart jars of those in 2 weeks. Yeah.
He loves them.
I do. But stuff like that before it was snacky items. Dollar Tree. It was Dollar Tree items.
We spent a lot of money on Dollar Tree before.
We did. I mean, we tried to keep them as low as possible.
Yep.
So that's why we went to Dollar Tree, but it wasn't healthy. I mean,
And
definitely
you
not
were
healthy.
eating. He would split one bag of his well, before he was eating like one every 2 days.
That's
And
probably
then he
true.
started splitting them up between the week. One bag a week. He'd get four
Yeah.
bags, one bag a week.
Yep.
He'd have to ration them out. Well, then, I never told him he couldn't have them, but he's like, no, we'll find something you can make it. And we came across this cracker bread recipe and it worked out really well for him.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, things like that. I didn't think we would be able to save at the rate we are right now either. Um,
No,
one,
you thought 50% was high.
I did. One of the things though that I didn't think we would be able to do was invest more either,
That's true.
because we initially didn't invest the amount we are investing right now because we wanted to see how this would work for a
Yes.
few months before we actually got to the point of, okay, do we need to up the 401k? Do we need to update those type of things, higher?
Well, we wanted to
Well,
see if we could actually, if we needed to adjust the budget to take those funds into account. We
right.
knew we had to make changes,
We did.
but we just didn't know
What?
what changes to make
Right.
and how
So
much.
so we waited to April to do that. So we had a few months of we waited past January and February because those were the months we did the pantry challenge.
Yes.
So our budgets wasn't as accurate those 2 months because we didn't hardly spend anything, those 2 months if you remember watching our stuff. So we were trying to, you know, have a full month under our belts to see what it would be, and we were like, okay, now how much do we need to be investing?
Absolutely. And that's what we really looked at as a point. I would say for me, we've done really well. I've been proud of us. I knew I could get my grocery budget down to 300. I said you just might have to work with me, but I knew I could.
Well, and we didn't have as many convenience items.
We did not. We
Is
cut
what it
out all
is.
the convenience items. And the other thing is, I've really focused on stockpiling my pantry and us eating from those stockpile foods. A very basic, simple, and then make something great from those simple ingredients. Really what I've been focused on. And even this year, I'm taking it a step further. I'm canning more.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
doing more. Have a whole cabinet full of chicken.
Yep. It looks really nice.
It does. I canned potatoes. That is new.
That is, and that we looked at that from a perspective of two ways. She didn't have enough freezer space, and if we can ever get to the ability to shut off one of those other freezers, the other freezer we have downstairs, then that's more or less electricity costs we'll have as well.
Right. Or I can make sure that our freezer space is being utilized the best way possible. That deep freeze in the wintertime, if we were to lose power, that deep freeze is my best chance to keep my meat
Right.
frozen. I can put blankets on it. It will keep the meat frozen. I don't have to worry about it as much versus my upstairs freezer, which is a stand-up. It's those things. Or if we
side
wanted to
doors.
go French doors, if we wanted to get a smaller freezer downstairs, which we have talked about, we have discussed getting a smaller
We
freezer.
have, because we are using a Montgomery Ward freezer at the moment.
Is that one Montgomery Ward?
Yes,
It is. Oh,
that's Montgomery Ward. So, for people who don't know what Montgomery Ward is, they went out of the business in, I would say, late 90s.
it was free.
It was free. It was.
free. It's a good freezer. It's
It's
a
a good
great freezer.
freezer.
It's a great freezer. My gram gave it to me. But I will always, and I know this is controversial. This is so controversial. I will never get a stand-up deep freeze. Ever. Ever.
That's because the Ford Philco.
Well, everything in it had to be thrown away.
It did. It did.
Everything in it had to be thrown away. I only had to throw away a few things in my deep freeze because most of it was
Right.
still frozen at
Right.
the bottom.
Right. Very true.
So I know that for us, a deep freeze makes more sense. It just does. I like the deep freeze, and we want one that is more efficient battery wise. Because if we did have to plug it up to our generator, to our
Yeah.
solar array, we could do that real easy.
Right. we know it can run the one in the basement with what we've got, but at the same time, we could run a lot more if we didn't have the Montgomery Ward one.
So this is something we're thinking about, but I would need to cut back on how much I have in that freezer.
Yep.
So, and we're also looking at it a sense of I need to plan out our food for next summer and spring because I need to spend less time in the kitchen. I need to have breads cooked in the freezer. I need to have sourdough pancakes in the freezer, bagels in the freezer. The best time for me to do that
is the winter.
In the winter, it will warm up my house. He'll give give me something to do. Give me something else to do during the day.
I mean, she doesn't have anything to do anyway.
I don't have anything to do. But I feel like we've done really well. I feel like we have.
We've adjusted well to it. I will say I am extremely tight on stuff anymore. I'm
probably worse than you are.
You probably are, but I am very conscious, even more than before, of every little penny.
We are, and that might change a little bit, but we have been being very careful. I don't see it changing too much. Maybe going a little bit more conscious, because we've always been careful with how we've spent money, always. But any little purchases for us, we kind of keep those down to a very little minimum. Like, we definitely look at the budget. Like, if this sale doesn't, if this sale's going to blow my grocery budget, I just missed the sale. And that's what I told somebody. They're like, well, what's your grocery budget? And I told them, like, how can you do that? And it's like, it's just not in the budget this month. It's not. Now, I could make a little bit more room, and we could make some shifts and adjustments. If it were a sale that we would really like, it would really help us. It'd be something we would eat a lot of. But if it's not something we eat a lot of, I'm not going to make the extra moves.
Yeah.
But we've been very flexible, too. We have been very flexible. I know we've been kind of structured, but we have adjusted well to this new.
We have. One of the things is, let's say the receipt apps. I wasn't as good with them before.
He's been amazing.
I would forget them a week or miss the dates on some of them. Now it is every Saturday night or Sunday night. The receipt apps happen no matter what. Yep.
When I'm cooking, he's doing all of this.
Yeah.
It's like this is his time to get our not that he's over the finances solely, but it's kind of like his time
research and analysis.
To do the research and to push it in.
Yeah.
While I'm doing our prep for the week to get us ready and get us functional. And it works really well for us. It does. I mean, we both know each other's jobs. We've split them up based on our skill set. Who's better suited to take pictures of the receipt app? Aaron. Who's better suited to bake the bread? Julia.
Yes.
So I'll make bread while he takes pictures on the receipt app. And this works for our family. But I will say that this one income, it was scary. I'm not as scared now. I've adjusted to it. But I would say the biggest thing is being debt free.
Yes. We wouldn't have felt as comfortable at it, I will say, or at peace mind-wise, if we were one income trying to pay off debt at the same time, just because we like to see progress, and
it would have been
it would have been tougher to see. It would have been tougher.
We would have done it. You can. You absolutely can. But we just knew if we pushed, we could. If we pushed through, put some things on hold.
Yeah.
It just made some really big pushes. We can make some really big changes that would push us a lot further. So it worked out really well for our family.
Right.
But I know it doesn't work out well for every family. Yeah. And that's what you have to figure out. You got to figure out what works well for yours. I know this is a conversation right now. This is becoming a huge thing, becoming a one-income family. It's very controversial as well. I'll tell you now, I work harder now than I ever did before.
I've seen her tired many days lately.
Most nights.
Most nights.
Most nights I'm ready to drop. That's it. I think I even fell asleep with the baby in here and watching the baby on the couch. So it can happen, but it's really depends on what's best for you and your family.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, we would tell you that even if you're not a one income family, if I were to get a job tomorrow, I would still want to do those weekly budget meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I would still want to make sure we're planning out our purchases, because these skills and habits that we're forming right now, they're only going to grow, and we're going to get them better and better the more we do them.
Find new ways to do it, better ways to do it, better ways to track sales, stuff like that. It's always going to happen.
And then we're just going to keep saving more and more money or doing better for our family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all I can see is these are just really good habits for us to have right now. And it keeps us on the same page money. We don't argue about money.
No.
We've never argued about money.
So, good example this week at work. Somebody's like, oh, you need to go try this acai bowl. I guess that's how you say Akacai, acai. Is that how you say it?
Asia.
Okay.
Whatever.
So, and I'm like, how much was it? $12. I said, we spend $12 on our whole family going out to eat. So
we do.
They were just like, Aaron, just hush.
It works for us. It doesn't work for every single family, but our process works for us. But you can take the basics and apply some of them to your family, and it does take work.
It does.
It takes work. Aaron has to take sometimes it's an hour he has to put into the budget because he's looking at all of our numbers. Sometimes it's, 15 minutes, depending on what we were doing.
Right.
It really just depends on what our week looks like, what we're doing, and what we need to focus on our budget meeting. It takes work, but it's worth the effort. Definitely. Knowing you're on the same page is worth the effort.
It definitely is like game changer.
There's never been financial strife in our household because we've always had this where we know what the other person is spending and we want to be at the same place financially, which was, it wasn't completely debt free then.
No.
But as we've grown, we've talked about it. We've been like, we need to be debt free.
Yeah.
All this needs to happen. We need to be debt free. These are what we need to go to. And we talk through. We have to compromise on some things, and that's okay. But we still get what we want. Like Aaron was making some ham radio updates, and he kept having to buy little things. I'm like, okay. And then finally got to one. I'm like, okay, how many more things do we need to buy for this ham radio update that you're doing? And he was like, I know. This is the last purchase. And it was okay. We were able to afford it, and we were able to...
Missing this piece, missing that piece. 2 connectors didn't connect right type of thing, It's just unforeseen expenses.
They were. And it just kept piling up. But we were able to talk about it and figure out what we needed to do. And that's worked well for our family. Just knowing that we could talk about money, any amount. And that before we spend money, we talk about it.
Right. Well, if you got any questions, anything you want to hear about in a future episode, you can either leave those down below or send them to thecannycouple@yahoo.com. And make sure to go over and check out our link tree down below there with all of our other content.
And as always, thank you for joining us on Rural Reliance with the Canny Couple, where we work hard, live simple, and enjoy life. Have a wonderful day.